Well, hello, everybody. My name is Amanda Walsh. I'm the founder of Astrology Hub, and I am here with Ann Ortelee for your weekly astrological weather. So we're going to be doing an astrological weather update beginning today and going until next Tuesday. Although, knowing Ann, we'll go back a little bit so you can understand what was happening a few days ago as well. So Ann, tell us about the energy. What is up? What are we going to be navigating this week ahead? Let's dive in.
Okay. Well, it's one of those really, really intense weeks. This week, we're going to have an aspect that happens once every 13 years and that's Jupiter, the planet of abundance, and Pluto, the planet of transformation, getting married. The last time they got married was December of 2007, when we had Bernie Madoff with the money. And we also had the beginning of us going, oh, we're in a financial crisis. Lehman Brothers collapsed, and we kind of stepped into this new reality. Banks are too big to fail, problems. So this is the next chapter of that. We're going to have 3 Jupiter-Pluto conjunctions this year. This first one is real important to watch. I'm hoping that we're going to see, because Jupiter's lots of and Pluto is also death, I'm hoping we're going to see Italy's death numbers drop down. But it also kind of says, okay, here we're going to have this new beginning. And then in June, we're going to have part 2. And then we have part 3 in November, where we kind of go, okay, that story's over. So we know we're looking at this 1, 2, 3, and astrology does that. It says, I'm going to give you something to be aware of, but I'm going to give you 9 months to take care of it. So when we get to November, it's about 9 months from here, end of November. So this is kind of like, think of this, we had used the analogy last week of giving birth. And so this is it, kind of that when you get to the 3-month mark in June, you're going to be like, oh, wow, this is great. I'm stable. The pregnancy is really in, and I start telling everybody. And then we give birth, in the November, December timeframe. But this is the first one. And so that happens this week. So that's big. And that happens I'm checking my notes. That happens on April 4th. Okay.
On April 4th. So Ann, you said Jupiter's the planet of lots of and Pluto's the planet of death. Why would that indicate a decline in?
Well, it will be a lots of in us, but in terms of Italy, right?
Uh-huh.
Italy, what we're watching is Italy when they start to drop.
I see, because we're looking at their timeline is what you're thinking. Okay.
Timeline to see so I'm kind of looking, okay, Italy, start to drop, have the numbers drop then.
Mm-hmm.
Because then we know how long our top is, right? Because that's the unknown right now. But yes, that will be a surge here in the States. You're going to hear a lot about it. You're going to hear it really running very strongly as we go, oh, wow, bigger, bigger, bigger. And so one of the other things, so that's the big thing this week. So everybody's going to feel that coming in and be like, whoa. So you want to kind of know it's Jupiter is abundance, Capricorn is grounding, Pluto is lots of, be obsessive about your grounding, using the energy positively, right? So we're going to go, this is the energy. We're going to watch it swell. We're going to feel like, oh my God. So I've been reading a lot. People are kind of, okay, I'm just watching the news this much. I'm not going to be all in the news all the time searching. I'm going to focus my intent rather than overloading. Right? Because Jupiter is big, but it's in an earth sign. So he says, ground yourself, take a Qigong course in the morning, lay down on a rock in your backyard and look at the sky, do grounding exercises for yourself. So that's the first one. The second one is Mars, which every 2 years he does this. Mars coming to Saturn in Aquarius. And that's going to happen on March 31st. And so we're going to have that go past Saturn. And he initiates a new 2-year cycle. He does this every year. He meets up with Saturn. Every 2 years, rather, he meets up with Saturn. He says, okay, go. Now, what we've watched is Mars coming through all these Capricorn planets initiating energy, and now he's initiating a new energy with Saturn. The difference now is Saturn has gone into Aquarius, where he last was in 1991. Spring of 91. So you're going to be thinking about stories from 91, and what went on in your life back then. And Mars comes along and he activates this and he says, I'm going to tell you how we're going to work. Mars is the planet of work, action, go forward, with Saturn, the authorities, the structures in our life. Now, Saturn 2 weeks ago moved into the sign of Aquarius, which is the sign of groups and connection and relationships. So a lot of people, now that we know we're going to be in our rooms for a little bit longer, are going, okay, let me find a structure to my life that allows me to find groups that are supportive. So hopefully here, Astrology Hub, as I like to call it, although I know the real name is Astrology Hub, come and find the groups that are supportive. And then also, watch the groups that you go into, Mars, Saturn. You might want to set some boundaries with some of the other groups. So I've been doing it with messaging, because when people, I'm very much aware of, we catch things from people. We catch fear, we catch excitement, we catch laughter. And so I've been very aware when people send me, this is really scary. I go, you know what? I'm not watching scary. I don't watch scary movies. I don't spend money on anything that's scary. I don't spend money on anything that's violent. I watch rom-coms and inspirational happy stories. That's where my movie dollars go. So I'm like, why would I watch something when I'm all alone in my apartment? I remember as a kid babysitting, and back then there were 3 channels. I'm old. And there was the birds. And it was like, why am I watching this? I'm all by myself, and the birds are going to peck out that poor woman's eyes, right? So Mars, Saturn, limiting, taking action to limit your interaction with groups that are not positive, taking action to work with Saturn groups that are positive and that are helpful. This is also going to be, we're going to be looking and saying, okay, I guess this is going to go on a little longer. I guess I need to restructure what I'm doing, right? So Saturn is structure, and I need to come up with a better structure. So in my case, it was like, okay, no alarm, wake up when you wake up. And then when you get up, you do this. And then these are the structures within my day, right? So coming up with a new structure for your daily routine. They were talking literally Aquarius is little piles of things, right? And they were talking that jigsaw puzzles have had a resurgence, because it's working together to put the little pieces together to make a big picture. It's kind of a very Aquarian energy. So we watch for the energy in the collective to kind of give us a guidance. The other thing that's happening, which is really important, is the Mercury is still in Pisces until the 11th of April. But this week, on April 1st, April 3rd, and April 6th, Mercury has aspects with Neptune. Now, Mercury does not like being in water. He's an air guy. He likes to talk. He's a Virgo guy. He likes to fix things up. He's an Aquarian. He likes to think big thoughts. Those are his 3 favorite signs. He hates being in Pisces, because Pisces is fluid and water. And if you think about when you're underwater and you're trying to talk, and, I used to have tea parties in the pool, and we go down and we talk, and, and come up, but you can't hear anything, you can't talk in water. But it also makes us very emotional, makes us very deeply feeling. And Mercury is coming up to join up with Neptune, the planet of the ocean. Higher form Mercury is spiritual, music, dance, singing. We have these disco parties on the internet now, DJs playing stuff, and everybody can dance in their apartment. We have the different orchestras getting together and everybody playing music in their own house. That's positive Neptune. Lower form Neptune, a little paranoia, a little sadness, a little bursting into tears, a little illusion, delusion, double down on your AA meetings or your OA meetings or your meetings that help you stay sober and help you stay grounded. Again, the Jupiter-Pluto says we want you to ground, right? So the Mercury-Neptune says nothing is grounded. It's all scary. And you have to go, hey.
I'm sorry.
Okay. And that is our sign from the universe that's the most important thing I've said today. The universe kind of weighed in and played a little music to say, yeah, that's the one you really want to think about, people. Because Mercury is in Pisces, and what happens this week is Venus on April 3rd goes into Gemini, and she answers to Mercury in Pisces. So Venus, even though she's fun and flirty when she's in Gemini, will be more emotional and more feeling and more, so you want to kind of know, very emotional, as we build up. Now, if you've noticed the dates, we have the sun aspecting Neptune also by declination on the 1st, which amplifies it. Mercury hits Neptune on the 1st. It also hits it by declination on the 6th. Paranoid, emotional, very feeling based. And then if you notice this weekend, when Amanda and I talked last week, I said, the weekend's going to be pretty emotional, Presley, Sunday, Monday, because the moon went into Gemini and everybody went, and I got a lot of emails from folks going, I'm really feeling overwhelmed, and paranoid. And that was, of course, when we had the threat to quarantine New York, and and Mayor Andrew Cuomo, the governor here, said, and everybody was calling me in the middle of the night, are they going to lock us down? So you have to watch for paranoia, watch for fear, and really, limit, because you're going to be more infectious this week in, being infected by the culture coming into you than you've been for a while, because we just blew past that date. They just shifted when we thought we were getting out. And now everybody's like, oh my God, calm down, breathe, just trust. So Amanda, reaction, I can give.
Yes. Okay, so I've heard a few things there, and I just wanted to sort of summarize.
Go through them, yeah.
Okay, so we have.
That's the over picture for the week. Yeah.
It's great. It's awesome. Okay, so we have this idea of creating structures in our day-to-day life, new kinds of structures. And I know that happened for me last night. I got the white paper out with my daughters. It was finally like, okay, like I've just become a homeschooling mom. We got to actually have a structure here, or else we're just going to float and it's going to feel miserable, really. So it was like, okay, fine. one of the things I've been thinking,
that was Saturn, yeah.
Yeah, and the thing I've been thinking about is this invitation that the astrologers have been saying over and over is this is a year where we get to step into new levels of mastery. And so I'll just tell you my process a little bit to be totally just transparent. Yesterday was the first day that my children were supposed to be back at school, because the 2 weeks before, where we were officially quarantined, was spring break. But today, yesterday, school started. But what I realized is that there was going to be a lot less structure to their days than I had been hoping for. And that really a lot of it, if not most of it, was going to fall on me to actually do. And I'm like, oh my God. Okay, so I work full time, and now I have these 2 children at home that I'm responsible to homeschool. And I've known this all along, but it was that reality check of this is what it's actually going to look like. Right. And I had that moment of meltdown of I don't know if I can do this. What you're saying, the overwhelm, I don't know how I can do this. I've already said so many times in my life, the most stressful thing to do is to try to work at home when I have children at home. It is really hard. So I had my little drama moment of I don't know if I can do this. And then I kept hearing those astrologers in my head going, mastery, mastery. This is time for mastery. And I was like, okay, well, I never thought I would set out to become a master of homeschooling and working, but this is an invitation. Here's the universe. The universe is this is what you thought, and it's going to be a little different. But here's an invitation for me to take what looks like an impossible situation and be and plus we can't have play dates, and we can't go to the beach, and we can't do all the things that make being at home actually okay, So it's okay, it looks like an impossible situation, but how are you going to step up? How are you going to step up? And I was like, okay, all right. I just need to embrace this new reality that I'm in, because how do I want to look back on this time? Do I want to look back on this time and be I fell apart? Everything just was a disaster. I mean, there's going to be moments, I'm sure, for every one of us. Or is it wow, I found strength I didn't know I had. I found new capabilities I didn't know I had. My girls and I got closer. Those are the kinds of outcomes I'd love to have. So I was okay, here's an opportunity. All right, so that's one thing. You said structure. Mm-hmm. The other thing you said,
Mars Saturn. That was the 31st.
Okay, which is today.
Well, as it comes in, we feel it.
Right.
Mars comes in, we always get a little before he gets there.
Right. Okay. So the other thing you talked
Monday, yeah. Mm-hmm.
You talked about paranoia and emotion, heightened emotions. Yeah. So it's really interesting.
Paranoia. Higher form is spiritual, zooming into your quiet space, listening to a record album, laying down, watching the clouds, escaping into your spiritual connection to divine.
Right.
Short form is be afraid, be very afraid. Yeah.
Right. And gosh, can't you guys feel yourself? I mean, I don't know if you're anything like me, you can feel yourself having vacillations at times. Like, it's like, okay, here it's going down. And then when it's down, it's like, I can't even access that other vibration where I knew everything was actually okay, because you're down there. And so that process of bringing ourselves back up. And I know there's this concern sometimes with like spiritual bypassing, where you're like not experiencing reality and you're just like up and out of the body. But I think what we're being invited to do is what you were talking about earlier with the grounding into our spirituality and really doing the things that help us ground into it. And I just want to bring up the birthing one more time, because I had this real visceral experience of it today where and I can tell like immediately when I'm not in the right headspace. It's like, all right, a series of events happen. I'm not in the right headspace. I need to do what I need to do to get into the right headspace, because I know that I have the power to do that. And so I need to like take the responsibility and do it. Right. So I went for a walk this morning, and that is like one of those grounding, like boom, right in, like I can feel the reality again. And what it reminded me of is when I was birthing Sophia, I was a natural birth. I was feeling intense labor. And I think I've mentioned this before, but I did this thing with my voice where I would find this octave with my voice. And when I hit the octave, I felt no pain. It was the most amazing experience to be like, I'm in pain. This is awful. Like, when's it going to be over? To like, okay, I can use my voice to find this note, hold this note. And when I'm there, I feel no pain. And I also heard angels singing, by the way, which I thought it was my doula singing with me. And I opened my eyes and she's just holding my hand, smiling at me. I'm like, oh my God, she's not singing. I am literally hearing angels. It was amazing. But what it reminded me of is I had that similar experience today where I woke up, I was like, I'm not really in the right headspace. I need to go for a walk. And as I was walking, it was like I was finding that note with my voice, where I could find that octave and be like, you know what? Okay, now I remember. Now I can breathe. I'm not in that turmoil anymore. So I would just encourage all of you to find those things that get you to that place and minimize the things that take you out of it. And it's not bypassing. The hardest work we have right now is staying in that strength. So that to me is it's different. You're not bypassing by being like, what do I need to do to stay in my truth, to stay in my core, to stay in my peace, to stay in my joy. That is not saying you're ignoring what's happening in the world. There's no possible way to ignore what's happening in the world. So you're getting enough of that. Now the invitation is, okay, well, how do I not get thrown around by that? And that's the challenge. It's hard. And this is what mastery is all about. Mastery. Like, it is not easy. That's why they call them masters. So we're all on this path right now of initiation where we're getting the opportunity to step into this new level of ourselves that we didn't know was possible.
Right. And there were a couple things that when you were saying that came to mind. There was a beautiful video of people in the hospital in Spain, I believe it was, standing in the hall, the staff chanting together.
Wow.
Doing a chant. And I find I was raised Catholic, so I love Gregorian chants. So I've been playing my Gregorian chants when I'm overstressed. The other thing is the analogy of when you're in the water and you're near the ocean and you see a big wave coming and you have an option to either stand there and have it whack you, or you can dive into it, which is what they suggest you do.
It's definitely
I've done both, right? Or when we as a kid, my dad taught us how to body surf. We would body surf, and then when you landed, you would kind of be in this little crumbly little route, and then you'd pop your head up. So that's the energy of this week, that flow. But also Neptune does have that sound. So, chanting sounds, oming, om tunes us. That's why they have us do it. To your point, going to that frequency that made you lose the pain, it set the vibration in your body high, which made your body go, oh, I'm not in pain. I'm in frequency. What frequency makes that go away?
It was amazing. I found out later that it's called toning, and it's a thing. And I had no idea what it was. And it was the ah note, and I can't even do it. I've never been able to make the sound again. It was like the force of nature flying through my...
Giving birth noise.
Yes, it was a birth noise, that's for sure. I call it singing, but it was really not singing. But it was which I know now is the vibration of love. So it was like, when I held that vibration of love, I was in a transcendent, incredible space. So it's this like visceral body experience of that. So as you were talking, so the paranoia, the structure, emotionality. Oh, that was the other thing, is last night when I was feeling that like overwhelm of, oh my God, how am I going to do this? Like, imagining myself like this, like homeschool mom, like, okay, girls, we're doing this thing. And then I like jump on a call and like it's like, oh my God. So I was like, I think I just need a really good cry. I think I just need to really cry about this and just like let it out. And I think,
Neptune, yeah,
exactly. And then I was like, I think I'll feel better after I can just do that. Like, I need to just cry and feel really bad for myself. I mean, I'm obviously not the only one in this situation. All of us are experiencing this, but that doesn't take away from the fact that you have to feel each thing yourself. You're going to feel these things as they come up. Mm-hmm. So Anne,
let's remember back to our 5 stages: denial, bargaining, depression, anger, acceptance, right?
Yeah.
You just kind of described those, and we're all going to cycle through them. That's right where we're supposed to be.
Totally.
That's part of what happens when your world as you knew it, and you're like, I didn't want this.
I know. I know it's the I didn't want this. I'm just going to bring up one more analogy that I was thinking about this morning that has been really, I just keep coming back to my divorce / personal apocalypse / personal fall of Rome period of time, because it felt so overwhelmingly dark. And there was like a sense of hopelessness, because it's that thing like, but I didn't want this. I didn't want my life to change. I liked it. I liked what was happening. And I had this vision and these dreams of what my life was going to be. And I had no concept of what it could be that would be better than what I had, So it was like that feeling of despair when you can't even clue into a vision of reality that could be better, could be more joyful, more authentic. And it's in that place where it feels overwhelming, the despair. But that's where I was thinking that having visions of people who have not visions, it's stories, hearing the stories of people who have overcome adversity and come out on the other side better for that experience. And maybe you have those own experiences, and that's great. But then there's also tuning into other people's stories of that I think, again, right now, seeking those out. And I'll go back to the birthing. So my first birth was it was an unplanned cesarean in the hospital. After that, I was like, God, I'd like to try something different and see what else, So I started to look into natural birth and water birth and things like that. And a lot of hospitals won't even take you if you're thinking of doing that, because it's a VBAC and it's supposed to be really dangerous. But I was like, God, it can't be like worse than what I just did. So like, I want to at least give myself a chance. I found a midwife who had done tons of VBACs, and she was more than willing.
Explain what a VBAC is.
Vaginal birth after cesarean. So it's a natural birth after you've had a C-section, which
your uterus open.
Exactly. So there's risk involved, but anyways, she had done a ton of them, all very successfully. And she said, if we need to go to the hospital, we will, but you've actually never given your body a chance to try a natural birth because of the way that the first birth went. So I said, okay, I'm going to try it. Like, I'm going to do it. One of the things I did that helped me so much is I started watching movies about women who had given birth in water. So there was this one called Birth as We Know It. And I got flooded with visuals of all these women who had birthed in water, who had had these children in these beautiful, beautiful ways. And it began to replace the imagery I had in my head of the pain and the suffering and the screaming and this is awful, which is, I think, what I'd been bombarded with through movies and everything my whole life. And so I watched those things like religiously over and over and over and over. And what happened? I ended up with a 4-hour water birth that I do not describe it as blissful. Like, I feel like it's a whole nother level of pressure on women.
It was labor. It's still called
labor. It was labor. Yeah. Like that women being like, I wasn't in bliss. I wasn't orgasming as I was in labor. You've heard about that kind of birth. And it's like, that's a whole other layer of pressure that I would never want to put on women. It still hurt, but it was liberating. And so I think, again, the visuals, the stories, the flooding ourselves with ideas and images of what it could be that we would actually be happy about. The same thing happened with the divorce. I started talking to people that had gone through divorces, and it wasn't a massive trauma for everybody involved. There was harmony. There was peace. The couple still got along. They considered themselves friends. I listened to those stories instead of the stories of, this is going to be traumatic. Your children will never get over it. Your life, you're going to be all those visuals of, your life is just downhill from here, all that. So that's what I'm feeling is such an invitation for us right now, especially as we're bombarded with paranoia and visions of things that none of us want to live in, a world that none of us would be excited to live in.
Right. Yeah. And you and I had talked, I do a podcast on Sundays. And one of the things I've dug out is my old Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, Viktor Frankl. And he was a psychiatrist in the concentration camps. And he had a mission to get out of the camps alive and tell everybody what he saw, right? But he observed how other people handled what was going on, being trapped in that bad position. And one of the things he really noted was the dream of having a vision past where you are, like to have it, even if you don't know quite what it's going to look like, but you have this vision that you're going to have this on the other side, because that allows you to get there. And when the trade centers went down, one of my friends was in the second tower, and, walking from there to 86th Street, it's about a 10-mile walk. And she got out of the buildings before they collapsed, and she walked home going, Walnut Creek. I'm going to go to Walnut Creek. I'm going to go to Walnut Creek, which was this place she had seen in somewhere in, I think, New Mexico. I'm going to go buy that house in Walnut. She'd been looking at it on the internet, and she had a vision, and it helped her, right? And I think it's really important for all of us to have. We don't know what's going to come, but we have to have a vision of where we're going. And one of the things that Viktor Frankl said in his book was the people that said, well, it has to happen on this day and I'm going to get out. Those people, when it got to that day, they fell apart, right? Mm-hmm. And I do it a lot with people when they're ill, and they say, well, I have to get through my kid's high school graduation. And I'm always like, make it bigger. No, I just want to get through that. And then the illness comes back. And then, and we have to recognize how powerful our minds are in how they create the image of what we're going for. So for folks to work with this energy and say, we don't really know where we're going. We know, I'm in New York, I'm in an apartment, I can see people on the street, I can see trucks. I know the world is still out there. What's my image of how I'm going to re-enter it, but without an expectation of when?
Yes.
Is most important. So you didn't know going into that birth, it would only be 4 hours.
No, I was in it for the long haul. It was like, as long as it's going to take. Totally. Yeah. Yes.
But you had a vision of how you wanted to do it.
Yes.
You did that.
Yes. Yeah. And also what I'm thinking too, as you're speaking, it's a vision of what we want to experience on the other side of this, or who we want to emerge, but much more focused on the qualities than the actual, I'm going to do this, it's
by this day.
Exactly. Well, and also like, it's going to look exactly like this. I personally, in my experience, it's been way more helpful to focus on the qualities. Like, I want to emerge stronger. I want to emerge more in tune with life and what matters to me. I want to emerge with stronger relationships with the people I love, whatever it is. It's those qualities, I think, that are more important than the actual details of like how it's exactly going to look, right? But then what you're saying in terms of this not being attached to how long, I can really see that playing out for so many people, because I know so many people were attached to that March 31st date. And I said to my parents yesterday, I was like, it's almost like this blessing and curse thing of knowing astrology and being surrounded by all of you incredible astrologers, because I know that there's no way this thing is over March 31st. I actually know that it's not over April 30th, you know? And so there's this blessing in that because we know that we are in a long process right now. But the curse is we know we're in a long process right now. So it's like, but what you're talking about, that's like that false hope. And when we get attached to that false hope, then it can be so disappointing when it doesn't come through.
It dashes us, drops us down, and in his case, in the concentration camp, people just curled up and died.
Exactly.
And obviously, we're not in a German concentration camp. We're in our own houses. We have a food supply. We can go out and walk around in the woods, or in my case, down to the river and look at the river. No woods here. But, I chose concrete, my choice. But yeah, that's the important thing, is to kind of say, okay, we're in a process of searching for meaning now. Saturn in Capricorn and Pluto in Capricorn and Jupiter in Capricorn say, what is the meaning and the purpose of your life? Why are you here? And they're sitting us in our own little rooms on a cosmic timeout, and we're in here going, and okay, you're in a cosmic timeout. And until the timeout's over, you're in your room. And if you're a healthcare worker, God bless you, you're in a war. Right?
Yeah.
You're also in that space of, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So you pace yourself, you honor yourself, you recognize those 5 different phases. You go, oh, right now I'm angry. All right, let me go break a dish.
Totally.
Let me go chop an onion. Yeah. But it's understanding we're all in it together. So that's the community piece. But also watch when people pin to a date and kind of say, well, let's reset expectations. We don't know.
We don't know.
I had a bunch of mothers this last week very upset because their kids aren't going to have graduation.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, they're the 9/11 babies, right? The kids that were born. And they go, well, they were born into it. I said, yeah, and in 19 years, they're going to have it again.
Mm-hmm.
This is an eclipse. It's big. It's every 19 years. We go through this on some level. And our job is to understand that we're going to be okay. We lived through 9/11. And we're going to lose folks. That's part of the deal of these things. But we're also going to get to the other side of it if we focus on where we're going and what our vision is, and we pay attention to how we follow those rules.
And
help us there. Yeah.
The other thing you were just saying, yeah, that making plans. Like I've witnessed a lot of people making plans for after. I'm just like, oh, and normally I don't say anything, but I'm thinking, you guys, like, we don't know. Like, so making plans about what you're going to do after, like we really just don't even know what it's going to look like after. So those sort of plans, it's like, just put that on hold and be in the process right now. The other thing you talked about with Viktor Frankl is that he had meaning in his time. Like, he was focused on what it was he was going to contribute on the other side of it. He was saying, I'm going to get through this so that I can live to tell the story. And so each one of us right now is, I'm going to get through this. So what? I'm going to get through this so I can, so I will. And this is this time where, and I don't think Viktor Frankl probably knew before he was in internment camp that was one of the biggest contributions he'd make with his life. How would he know? Because why would he have the goal before? Because so something new emerged that was obviously seated in him long before. He was a psychiatrist. He was already thinking these deep questions, but something new emerged through him in that time that gave him this new breath of life. And so each one of us, go ahead.
Go through it.
Exactly. The mission to go through what he was going through. So each one of us at this point, it might be something new. I mean, this whole homeschooling thing, I'm like, oh, maybe that's part of my purpose. And I never even knew, maybe that's something I'm here to do. But I think each one of us right now, that question of what is mine to give? What is mine to contribute? What is in me that is wanting to really express and come through right now? I keep thinking of like the acorn seed that ends up as the oak. And how could that acorn seed ever know that it's going to be this glorious oak at the end of it? But that potential is encoded in that seed from the very beginning. So this opportunity, this is like, talk about an activation of our potential. This is the time where things like that are accelerated and we get to experience new versions and new aspects of ourselves. So again, that compassion for self, for going through something that is really unsettling, uncertain, lots of questions, lots of unknown. And yet through it, it's like, who am I through this? What am I going to be through this? What am I going to contribute? And maybe that's in your home. Maybe that's in your environment. Maybe that's in your community. Maybe that's bigger in the world. Who knows? Each of us have a different thing we're here to do.
Right. And that's represented by your Saturn. And one of the things I was thinking, which I didn't mention to you, but I think we should incorporate into this, like what your Saturn is by sign and house, and what that then says to you about, what your work is in this time. We can't do it today because we have this, but we can add it in and get people thinking about, because this is an activation. Saturn is in the middle of this guy and he's hanging out. He's your work in the world and your purpose and why you're here. And everybody has a Saturn in some sign, and it also has Saturn in some part of their chart. So he's our work in the world, and all of us are having a giant Saturn transit right now. And he says, this is your work. We're restructuring your work. You're going to get a whole new job. And you might be like,
I liked my old job.
I like my old job, but, or you don't like your job.
Right.
And you're like, oh, thank God, it's over. So it's helping us, karmically look. And if we look at this as a global thing, the whole world's getting a chance to look at their purpose and their work in the world and why they're here and what they're supposed to do. It's like a big cosmic reset. And if we think of it that way, it helps a bit, because it helps us go, gee, let me approach this with a space of curiosity, of observation, of looking and seeing how other people handle it and do it. And in Viktor Frankl's case, he was like, okay, I'm here in this giant experiment. I'm going to observe how people search for meaning, how they attach meaning to things, how they say, okay, that's the meaning, and then it doesn't happen, and then they and also I'm going to understand their process and so we all have a karma, we all have a purpose, we all are here on earth at this time, so we're supposed to do something with this, and that's our job. I always say to my clients and my students, do your Saturn, because if you do your Saturn, the rest of the chart's happy, because that's your work in the world. And honoring that. And so we'll add that in as we go along, Saturn in the different signs and what your work is, and then go from there, because I think that will help people also figure out how they're supposed to individually handle this intense transformational energy. And I thought of that as Mars came to Saturn. I'm like, oh, we should tell them what their assignments are. Everybody's being homeschooled. So what is your personal, your homeschool is that you're going to be a teacher of your kids and run your business. Mastery time, Amanda, but everybody else is being homeschooled too, if they're not working in the hospital, where they're being schooled in a whole other lesson, in a whole other language. So real important for all of us to understand what our Saturn is. And in the meantime, for your homework, you can look up where your Saturn is by sign and placement, what house it's in and what sign it's in, and that will give you a clue what your work is. And if you move somewhere else because of your life, look at where your Saturn lands in the new house, because that's what you're supposed to do in that land when you're moving. Yeah. Really good. Okay. Well, so we'll add that as we go forward. That gives you reason to tune in next week.
Exactly. And I'm having some ideas as you're speaking.
Yeah, I can see you kind of light up there and go, oh, okay, I'm in.
Yeah. Well, you've been talking about this idea of do your Saturn, I think, for years. I remember you talking about it on one of our forecast events several years ago. And I remember really taking it to heart and being like, okay, my Saturn's in Leo in the 7th house, like, I need to do this and I need to show up and, do what that means to me. And it's really helped, And I remember Maurice Fernandez saying, I think it was 2017, one of our forecast events, he was an inner circle guide. And he said, whatever you're building over the next 3 years, make sure you're building it on solid foundations. And I think this was the same event where you were talking about building our house, building our, Saturn house. And he goes, because if you don't, it's going to come crumbling down in 2020. Like, that's just it. So it's like this again, this is where astrology is so helpful. I think if the world had known, had those heatings of caution and those ideas, a lot of things wouldn't have been built in the last 3 years that have been built, and people would have been thinking about it differently. So
It's getting us really focused on what our job is. Yeah.
It's getting us really focused on what our job is. And it's one of the reasons why I was going to postpone our Your Soul Purpose course that we just reintroduced. I was going to postpone it because I was like, God, is anybody thinking about their purpose right now? And, it just seems like maybe it's not the right time. But then it was like, no, actually, this is actually the right time, because we're all in this space where this is the invitation to really step into that purpose and then live it, live it as fully and brightly as we can. So we decided to re-offer that. So
I think that's a great idea, because that's the Jupiter-Pluto, which is what is my, Jupiter is my greater contribution to the group, to the collective, and Pluto is, and how is that tied to my evolutionary goal? So that's it's definitely good to and I would reoffer it again in June.
Okay. We'll be back in June.
The 3 Jupiter-Pluto conjunctions, because it's like Jupiter is, Jupiter rules the soul, and it rules your moment of incarnation while you're here, your Sag house and your Pisces house. So he's getting up with Pluto, and he's saying, what's the evolutionary journey that we're undergoing? We're obviously going through a big evolutionary transformation as a culture. And we notice these things when we look at the great cycles. These are moments when the culture and the collective shift, and everybody goes, wow, I was so busy, and now I'm in my little cocoon. And, what was I doing? What was it? So it's big. It's really big for all of us.
Well, and I think the question on people's hearts is it going to change for the better?
Yeah. That's why we have to have a vision of what we want it to be.
Exactly. And that's where all of your input in the 2020 forecast event, again, when you were saying we're the ones writing the script, we're the ones contributing to that outcome. And that's true with any personal thing that you're going through right now. And each personal thing is contributing to the bigger thing. And so it's, again, the invitation to come back to, how am I contributing? How is my energy contributing? How are my thoughts contributing? How are my actions contributing? And then we get to write the story that we want to live.
Because that's our job.
Yeah.
We do have that. We do have the freedom that we have to do that. That's the most important thing to remember. One of the things that happened this week was one of the guys in Italy got out. He was 107. And he was born in the 1919 flu. And as a symbol for the Italians, he went through the virus and he emerged, and he's alive, and he's 107. He goes, I knew it was important for me to live. And it was kind of like, okay, he lived through the first he was born into the first pandemic, and he lived through the second. So it's like, all right, you got it. And honoring what you're, in the quiet moments when you're not afraid, and when you're sitting there having a cup of tea after, kind of a chaotic time, in those quiet moments when you tune into your soul and you say, hi, soul, how are you? And a couple people wrote and said that they liked the idea of thinking how old their planets were. Like looking at the planet, the little degree sign, and dividing the minutes by 5 to see how old that planet is. That gives you the months. And then, if you have a 4-year-old Mars, your Mars needs to go out and work. If you got a 19-year-old Mars, maybe it needs to have a little sex. It's different responses to how that Mars takes action, right? And looking at your planets and kind of checking in with them every day and saying, hi, planet, how you doing? And it says, I'm a little sad. You say, okay, well, come over here and let's have a hug. You can hug your planets. It's not socially, you don't have to be socially distant from your own planets. You can hug every planet in your chart. Yeah, so it's good.
It's so good, Anne. Thank you so much. I'm really, really enjoying these weekly touch-ins with you, and I know our audience as well. So thank you so much for your generous contribution and for all of the way that you're helping us stay in the framework of, okay, what's happening and what are we meant to do with it? What's happening? Go ahead.
Where we go. Let's just add the moons for the day.
Perfect.
So today the moon's in Cancer, and tomorrow the 29th the moon's in Cancer.
Wait, but today's the 31st.
Am I in the right day? I'm in April, sorry. Today the moon is still in Cancer, and it's the 31st, and it's in Cancer today, and it's in Cancer tomorrow the 1st, and it's in Cancer on Thursday until 2:26 p.m. East Coast time, and the moon goes void with a sextile to Venus. So that's a very gentle, nice couple of days. But moon in Cancer is emotional. It needs good food, needs a little cuddle, needs an extra bath or shower, needs a little snuggle on the couch with a blanket. Remember, if you're all home together and nobody's quarantined, you can snuggle in a blanket, or just wrap yourself in comfort food. Comfort places, things that make you feel nurtured. The moon goes into Leo on Thursday afternoon at 2:28 p.m. East Coast time, adjust for your time zone. And then it goes void Friday afternoon around 3, and it goes void with a trine to the sun. So the moon in Leo, trining the sun in Aries, that's kind of a feisty, visionary, creative, a little performance, maybe a show at home, or dancing in the TV, or one of those things. That's going to be Friday night too, and then the moon goes into Virgo on Saturday night. So it's going to be in Leo Thursday, Friday, Saturday. It goes into Virgo on Saturday night at 5:18 p.m. East Coast time, and it's in Virgo on Sunday the 4th, or Saturday the 4th, Sunday the 5th, which is Palm Sunday, and then it goes void at 9:29 in the morning next Monday the 6th, and it goes void with a nice trine. Moon in Virgo is trining Jupiter. So the moons are very cooperative this week in terms of us being able to emotionally process. We just do have these very big, intense energies this week. The little extra paranoia or extra spiritual practice, little extra feeling blocked and held in, or organizing and structuring like Amanda did with organizing the schooling. And then Jupiter-Pluto, one of the third, there's going to be 3. And what we want to watch is for some kind of shift or change, hopefully a peak in Italy, and they start to drop their deaths, because then we know, we're kind of going to be a little closer to Italy, because we're not sure about China's numbers. We know Korea did really aggressive testing because they'd gone through a couple of respiratory viruses before. So Italy is our closest companion in, how you doing over there? Ooh, Italy, okay. Oh, you're dropping, good. So kind of go, okay. And then all of us just know, because these energies are happening, and Venus is shifting out of Taurus into Gemini, where she gets a little more fritzy, but she's also answering to Mercury and Pisces. She can get a little infected and afraid. So maybe journaling or writing or calling a friend or checking on the people that are running a little sad. So we had a bunch of things canceled just today in the morning mail. And one of my friends was like, I'm so depressed. So I know when I hang up, I'm going to go call her. Mm-hmm. I was so looking forward to it. And, and the woman who was we were supposed to go to her house out in Sag Harbor. And the woman who's hosting it said, the governor says we have to stay home. And she's a Sag. The woman who's depressed is a triple Sag. And she's like, oh, and it's like, I know, you're really sad. But so I'll check on her, but it's like paying attention to your peeps. It's a big week. Moon in Cancer is home and nurture. Leo is creative. Virgo is cleaning the closets, organizing, chopping, cooking, getting everything scrubbed and gorgeous and ready to roll. Spring cleaning. So those are our few days, and then we'll be back next Tuesday.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So check on your peeps, check on yourself. I know sometimes there's people that you might check in that it actually might spiral you. So make sure that, you plan in some time to take care of yourself in between those check-ins of other people. And, cause we're all in it. And yes, that your friend I'm really disappointed. It's like that's a death, that was a dream. And now it's done, and she has to go through that whole grieving process for that thing. And each person has this.
It was just a weekend where we all got together and cooked in a friend's house.
Yeah, but how fun! Yeah,
but it got canceled.
Right, canceled. Yes, exactly. So there's that cyclical grieving that we're doing. So sending all of you the biggest astrology hug possible.
From Astrology Hub.
Yes, from Astrology Hub, right. And just continue to do what you can to take care of yourself through this time, and continue checking in with your people. And we can't wait to see you. Together. Yes, and thank you again so much, and can't wait to see you all again next week. Take care, everybody.
Bye, everybody. Have fun.